podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Kate Markland, a former physiotherapist, children's author, and the creator of Story Quest, a methodology helping children find their voice through storytelling. After spending 20 years in physiotherapy, Kate learned that healing doesn't start with symptoms, it starts with being heard. Her work today is shaped by a deeply personal experience. During a period where she had limited contact with her son, she used storytelling as a way to stay connected. That process not only led to a best-selling book series, but also to a broader insight that became Story Quest, a framework now used in schools with remarkable results. Kate, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me, Joy. Thank you.
All right. So, okay. I want us to dive into your 20s a little bit, right? So, what were you focused on in your 20s, and how did you end up choosing physiotherapy?
I'd always enjoyed physical activity. So, as a very young child, we used to run and climb a wall in our back garden, run into the cow's field, run back round the village, and then repeat up the wall, jump down the wall, into the cow's field, and run. And then we did lots and lots of sports as well, swimming and ice skating. We did lots of sports. So, physical activity was a really important part of my childhood. And when I came to choose university and what to do, I originally applied to do medicine. But within the first year of medicine, I thought, this isn't for me. It just wasn't right. I remember we had an anatomy exam where the exam was on dead bodies, on the cadavers. And I was violently sick the night before. I just had a tummy bug. And I remember going to the exam room the following day and saying to the examiners, I've been up all night just violently sick. I can't do this exam today. And they had no empathy, none at all. I'm thinking, you're doctors. I've just been really, really sick. And they had no compassion whatsoever. And there were several other things during that first year of medicine that just made me really uncomfortable that this isn't actually the caring profession that I want to belong to. So I quit after a year, realizing this just isn't for me. And then I had always had in my mind whether to do physiotherapy. So it's 3 years after that, I decided to go and train to be a physiotherapist. And in my 20s, really, I was just driven to try and be the best that I could be at everything that I did. I was an elite athlete and I was studying. And I was just, yeah, trying to do my best with everything and somehow managing on not very much sleep. But that's what we all do in our 20s, isn't it? You're just driven to make your mark in the world. Um, and the thing that I really appreciated about physiotherapy was the time you got with people. You got to spend time with them to understand them, what mattered to them, understand their story, and then help them on their path of their own self-recovery largely. And that was a big difference compared to medicine. You had the opportunity to show compassion and listen to the person rather than just another number.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so I admire the fact that you were able to go for what you wanted. You knew exactly what you wanted and you were able to go for it. So that is something worth emulating, especially as young adults. We need to actually understand what we want and then go for it, no matter the situation we find ourselves. So that is something that, I must applaud, right? So, at that stage, how did you think about success and direction?
Oh, it was all about winning. It was all about winning. So I was rowing at the time and everything was about winning. I was an elite athlete as well as studying, and everything was about winning. I was highly competitive at the time, and it was all about winning. But the thing that I think I really learned during that time of studying and being an athlete was the discipline of being focused and organized, because I didn't have the ability to hand in coursework at the last minute. I mean, I couldn't stay up and do essays at the, if it had to be handed in tomorrow, I had to have it done a week before. I couldn't stay up tonight to do it because I'd be training in the morning. So I couldn't pull all-nighters as a student because I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning to train. So I think I really learnt the discipline of being focused on what it is you're trying to do and being organized in terms of having your diary managed, just being ahead of yourself with your coursework, not leaving things to the last minute. But yeah, it was largely all about winning.
Right. Wow. When you talk about winning, right? Um, I think we need to understand. First of all, I need to ask you, did you win all the time? Was there a
Oh,
time
of
where
course
you
not.
didn't win?
Of course not. But I was hugely competitive, as every, as lots of 20-year-olds are. You're just full of, and I think it was the athlete in me. No, I didn't win all the time. Of course, I didn't win all the time. Not at all. And I actually quit rowing in the end because of overwhelm. I got to a point that I couldn't take anymore. So we'd got through the Commonwealth Gate. We'd been selected for the GB team, or for England actually, to represent England in the Commonwealth Games. And we got through to the finals for that. And it also landed at the time of my final exams, and I was completely overwhelmed. And so I quit. And I've always
Mm.
had a bit of a regret about that. I've always had a bit of a regret because part of me's always thought if I sat down at the kitchen table with somebody and got really, really organized, perhaps I could have done both. So it was but that lesson of knowing that my weakness is overwhelm has also was also learnt. And maybe if I hadn't quit, I wouldn't have learnt that lesson that, sometimes the regret of not asking for help when you get stuck is painful.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I think I just learned from that actually. And I feel like what I learned is what you learned also. That sometimes at least you could recognize your weakness that it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right. So I think everybody should be able to recognize their weaknesses, right? And it takes a whole lot of self-reflection to be able to recognize your weakness. Right. So yeah, I feel like where you are today, you'll be able to give advice to we young adults, right? So for people in their 20s today, who what do you think they often get wrong about, figuring out their path?
I think we forget to ask for help. I mean, I think in that moment,
Mm,
you're so caught up in yourself that it's very easy to get stuck and you don't ask for help. Now, you want to make sure that you're making your decision for help. So there's got to be a wisdom in who you ask
mm,
for help. But I think we can get so proud that we don't ask for help and perhaps listen to somebody that's a bit older, a bit wiser, and been there before, and can sit at the kitchen table with us and help us sort it out. And quite often, it's not a
mm,
case of asking your mum or dad because they've got ideas about who they want you to be. It's asking somebody else that can just be a sounding board and be objective
mm.
rather than.
Right. Well, thank thank you so much, Kate, for that one. Right. So I want us to do a deep dive into what you do now. So can you explain Story Quest in simple terms and how it works for us?
Yeah, so StoryQuest is a process that's come about or that's been developed from my son and I creating The Adventures of Gabriel. So when my son was 10, we co-created, we co-authored a book. He's perfectly able to read and write, but I essentially asked him to express, if he wanted to be a hero of his own story, he orated his story and I was the scribe.
Mm,
And we then have tried that process or repeated that process in schools, and over 500, or in the region of 500 children now have taken part. And we've asked them all if they'd like to be the hero of their own story. And of course, they all say yes. But the vital part of it is that they orate their story. See, for 20 years as a
mm,
physiotherapist, nobody came in, or one person came in 20 years with their story written down. Most people do exactly what we're doing now, share their story orally. One person's the storyteller, the other person's the interviewer. And in the classroom, one person's a storyteller, and the interviewer
mm,
is also the scribe, just capturing notes. I mean, you're audio recording, but in the classroom, they just scribble notes. It's not about writing sentences, it's just capturing the keywords, so nothing's lost.
mm,
So a child is completely free just to focus on one executive function at a time. And the first one is just to be able to unleash their imagination and know that their friend is capturing it. Just in the way you're capturing my story right now, their friend is capturing their story in note form. And then they're able then to take their, or they're chomping at the bit to take their sheet back and start writing their story properly as if they're an author. But again, knowing that it's a first draft, this isn't about your spelling and grammar. The second phase, once they've expressed their story orally, is that they start to write it, and they're wanting to write it because they want to see themselves as an author, knowing that later they can worry about the perfection of the spelling and grammar. Because so often in the classroom, we're taught that, there's the conformity and the correction. As soon as you put your pen to paper, spelling's got to be correct, grammar's got to be correct, handwriting's got to be correct, and also you've got to make a sentence that's sensible. And it's just absolute overload. And I think what the 20 years as a physio taught me is the power of allowing somebody to orally express their story, as you are doing with me, and then refining with the questions, some close questions, just to clarify the detail of exactly how did the zombie apocalypse happen? Exactly how big is your pet dragon? What color were the cat's eyes? So the child having permission to express themselves and the friends taking the responsibility for capturing their story and also just probing for that extra detail means that the child's story is receivable by their audience, and they're just chomping at the bit. And in reality, this is what major authors do. They're two separate processes. There's the expression of your story is one process, and then the editing and presentation of your story is another process. We're just overloading children in the classroom with too many executive functions at once, which is not what happens in real life as adults. And then we're getting, if they can't achieve that, they're getting medical labels. It's like we're medicalizing childhood when actually the environment that we've created for them is completely dystopian. As grown-ups, we do a brainstorm, we empty our ideas. Even if we're just going to write an email, we empty our ideas, then we tidy it up. So StoryQuest is the process that allows children
Okay, so
complete creative
okay. All right. So, you've said the blank page isn't a literacy problem, but a
freedom.
voice problem. So what
Yeah.
does that mean?
So by that I mean that children are facing this blank page and they're scared of making a mark on it. It's not purposeful, it's not meaningful to them, and there's too many ways in which they can go wrong.
Mm.
And that's where we've created this literacy barrier. Whereas actually, if we allow them to verbalize and orate their story first of all, it becomes so purposeful to them and so important to them. And once they've verbalized it, they've got so much clarity about what it is they actually want to write as well, that they're saying to the teachers, Miss, when can I write my story? They're asking for extra sheets of paper. And the teachers are looking at me like they've never seen this happen before. Children that are, labeled as autistic or reluctant writers are asking to speak their story or write their story. They're wanting to see themselves as authors and know that their audience is their contemporaries, and that's really exciting for them.
Mm. All right. I think story quest is to make children feel heard.
Yes.
I think that's the main goal, to
Yeah.
feel heard and understood,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's important, right? It's important that, people feel heard and understood. Because most times we believe, like, there's this kind of belief we had, a child should be able to read and write, right? A child should be able to, do multiple tasks. But it's important to know that children differs, right? And the way they express themselves is different. So we need to understand how a particular child express themselves in different ways, and we should be willing to understand them, listen to them, and give them the audience they need. So, and I think that is what Story Quest is doing. So that's amazing, right? So I'm eager to know what changes when someone actually feels heard.
Oh, their self-belief. Their self-belief and their confidence
Mm.
grow hugely. They perceive anything being possible. They perceive that they can self-determine their character, they can self-determine their future, and that they can overcome problems. and also that they're not alone, because in the process of being heard, somebody has listened. So then they realize they're not alone either. But they become empowered.
Okay, so thank you so much. All right, thank you, Kate. And yeah, I move to ask, right? For someone going through a difficult period, how can they start to shift their internal narrative?
Well, the first thing is making the decision not to give up. That is the first thing. If you make the decision not to give up, you're always going to have options. You might not know what the solution is right now, but you make that one decision not to give up. And then to start shifting your internal narrative, I think one of the most important things is feeling like every day you've won the day. So you're not trying to win the month, the year, the quarter, you're just trying to win the day. And that can be really simple. It could be just to begin with, you make your bed, that you cook dinner, that you go for a walk. But you just set one thing that will mean that you complete the day feeling you've won the day. And over time, that one thing will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I like to write it down in a paper diary, pen on paper. What's the one thing I need to do today? Then I can cross it off and I've won the day. And if I get a second task, a third task, a fourth task, or a fifth task done, they're bonuses. But if you make the decision that you're not going to quit, then you decide, right, what's the one thing that I need to do today that will make me feel I've won the day? And it can be really simple in the beginning, because even if tomorrow you decide, right, I'm just going to make my bed, I can guarantee in 6 months' time, the one thing that you're trying to accomplish in the day will be way bigger than making your bed. You'll have started to forget that making your bed was even a task on the to-do list. But if you win the day, you'll start to gain momentum. Those one things, they stack, they stack, they stack. The consistency stacks. And then you'll get clarity in the direction that you're trying to focus as well as you keep going. What are these one things all leading to? But first of all, you've got to dig yourself out that hole just by feeling a sense of accomplishment every single day.
Okay, so thank you so much. This has been amazing, Kate. And finally, right, I would like to ask, what are you focused on building or expanding right now?
Well, I think we need to expand to Nigeria, Joy. We haven't been to a school in Nigeria yet.
Oh, okay.
It's international schools to join us who would like to take the StoryQuest process into their classrooms, so that we're creating connection. Whilst the world feels like it's on fire, the children are connecting and sharing the joy of their stories across borders. So yes, if any schools in Nigeria would like to join us, you're very welcome to reach out to me and
Wow.
get that started.
Okay, wow, that's amazing, actually. And I think we need that in Nigeria. You're right. You're right. And yes, I'm gonna put your link in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. And if peradventure I come across probably a teacher, I'm gonna also relate it to them because I feel like, students need to know about this, right? And they need to include it in their curriculum. So yes, thank you so much, Kate. This brings me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the Rapid Fire segment.
Thank you very much for having me, Joy. Thank you for having me.
All right. So yeah, the rapid fire segment is starting now, right? So listening or speaking.
Speaking.
Okay. Structure or creativity.
Creativity.
Okay. Healing or expression.
Expression.
All right. What is one word for story?
Potential.
Okay. And finally, one habit that helps people express themselves better.
Speaking.
Wow, speaking. Okay. Thank you, Kate. Where can listeners get to learn more about you and what you do?
If you visit my website, my name's Kate Markland and the website is katemarkland.com. That's KateMarkland. And from there you can find more about me, and you can also find direct link to the Stories Without Borders and StoryQuest for schools, and also to the Adventures of Gabriel book series.
All right. Thank you, Kate. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Thank you, Kate. Do have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much for having me, Joy.
All right. Bye.